All right. So what about what would you say some of the realistic expectations of therapy are?
Well, I think for me, first of all, people need to be clear about what full recovery looks like, because we offer that. We offer full recovery. So, I think a lot of people think that full recovery means that I will never be anxious or experience stress again,
Hmm.
right? But that's not true. We all do. We all experience anxiety. We all experience stress. That's life. Okay. Here's what anxiety recovery looks like, in my opinion. You are no longer afraid of your symptoms. Okay.
Hmm.
Your lifestyle is healthier.
Hmm.
You'll have healthier boundaries. You're going to know how to contain your thoughts and feelings, and you're no longer reacting catastrophically. Instead, what you will be doing is you will be practicing living a balanced lifestyle that is less stressful and less stimulated, and you will have learned how to live in the moment. You're going to know the difference between sensations of stress and symptoms of anxiety. And you're going to know that you really don't have anything to be afraid of anymore. And you can dismiss whatever fearful thoughts or symptoms you may have as signs of stress and overstimulation. Nothing more, nothing less. This is where I'm at. Doesn't mean that I still don't have sensations of stress. Doesn't mean that I don't still get anxious and I still don't experience stress, because that's life. But you know what? I'm not scared of it anymore. And the other thing that I believe is important to component is that anxiety disorder recovery means no more panic attacks. Because if you are practicing a healthy, balanced lifestyle, you won't have panic attacks. Now, you may still be tempted to get afraid, but you know how to respond to it in a way that you never did before. I haven't had a panic attack in 10 years.
Hmm. Right.
Uh, if I don't take care of myself, if I eat a lot of raw sugar and I skip meals and I start going back to some of those old behaviors, guess what? Those panic attacks want to come. But
Hmm.
even then, I'm able to stop them. But I also recognize it as signs of stress, and I need to get back to taking care of myself. So I think those are some realistic expectations about therapy. We don't need, I think it's wrong to think that we will never have anxiety or stress again. That's just part of life, but we're going to be better managers of it.
Yeah, I certainly agree, and that's why we talk about returning to normal health. I mean, we do and we
Right.
don't in some respect. We return to normal health, whereas everybody experiences anxiety and stress. It's just that those who don't struggle with anxiety disorder have learned to manage it,
Right.
so that it's not overpowering. And you're right that they're not afraid of it, but we actually get better because then we learn healthy behaviors, so our lifestyle takes on a healthier tone. So I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I can point out too is that anxiety recovery is where you are now living a more intentional lifestyle. Whereas before you're just sort of bouncing around and going through the motions and trying to figure out what's going on. Now you have a choice. You can actually live a more intentional lifestyle where you're intentionally choosing to live a healthier, more balanced life.
I agree. Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So rather than living on autopilot, we're more deliberate about what we do.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
and
bet.
and that's a cool thing, because if you think about it, anxiety, the biggest fear of anxiety is that we're out of control, right?
Right.
So, but when you have anxiety recovery and you have that kind of mindset, you have more control than you ever thought you possible.
Absolutely, I agree. The therapy is great and everything, but you know that there's a cost attached to it and a commitment, and not everybody's gonna, follow through to the end. So there are some people who take therapy for a while but then quit. So can short-term therapy be helpful, and what are the problems of quitting too soon?
Well, I think short-term therapy can be helpful to a point, but in no way does it allow for full recovery to be realized.
Hmm.
I repeatedly have clients who start feeling better when they understand the physical perspective of the condition,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden they start destimulating, they start taking care of themselves physically, and they're doing a really, really good job. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? You're awesome, Stacy. Thanks for helping me. And then they stop.
Right.
Okay. Until you know what those underlying issues are that created those underlying behaviors, those belief systems, what are the underlying issues that fed into those unhealthy behaviors and unhealthy belief systems, only when you can address them and reshape them will you fully recover from this condition. Because if you don't, if you stop too soon, if you just start feeling good and you don't really deal with why I'm a people pleaser, why I'm so driven, why I can't set boundaries, what are the reasons behind those behaviors, I can guarantee that the disorder will rear its ugly head again.
Right. Yeah, it's just a matter of time, isn't it?
Just a matter of time, because those stress hormones will slowly start building up. I've had clients where, I say when I graduate them and they're like, they are ready, they're good. And then I'll say, okay, keep practicing the strategies that we've learned about, and remember what we learned about these underlying issues, and don't go back to practicing the reason, the people pleasing. Stick with your boundaries, learn how to say no. These are just a few examples. And what happens is sometimes is they start going back and practicing some of the old behaviors again, and then they start becoming symptomatic again. And then they call me back and they're like, it's not over. And I'm like, well, let's talk about what you've been doing. And here they acknowledge, No, I haven't been getting proper rest. No, I'm not eating properly. And they basically slip back into those old behaviors again. It's extremely essential that you learn what living a balanced life looks like. And if you go back to practicing those old behaviors, it's inevitable that you're going to become overstimulated again and start feeling the symptoms once again.
Right. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, you bet. So what is your advice then to people who are considering working with a therapist?
Well, that's a really great question, Jim, and I really appreciate you asking it because I think it's extremely essential that when clients are considering working with a therapist, look at it as the most important investment you will ever make in your life because in reality, you will actually save it.
Hmm.
You can buy a house, you can change your investment advisor, but your kids only have one mom and dad. Your spouse only has one husband or wife, hopefully. So don't throw away the biggest opportunity you will ever have to make an impact in those you love by living a healthier lifestyle and becoming an anxiety disorder free client forever and being free to live the life. I really think that I don't know where I would be if I hadn't overcome this disorder. Well, I think I know where I'd be. I certainly would be a wreck.
Yeah.
So I just, people kind of look at this and they go, wow, that's expensive. But I'm going to be honest, if people look at the costs that are investment in recovery through the anxiety center, they're getting way more bang for their buck than they could ever dream possible. You can go to a $400 psychiatrist, and I guarantee you're not going to get the same service you're going to get from the anxiety center.
Right, right. You know, it's interesting you'd say that because when I look back, I mean, I haven't had anxiety disorder for over 20 some odd years now, and if I wouldn't have got the help at that time, my life would have just stalled right there. I mean, I was barely functioning, couldn't go to work, you know. I would never have made any of the choices I've made to get me to where I am today. And so, yeah, when you look at the cost of living a happy, successful, and fulfilled life, it's really minimal in terms of getting therapy as it is. You're right, if we just stay stuck. I mean, look at all the other, the cost-benefit analysis, for example. Cost of getting therapy, yeah, it's kind of an upfront hit as you're going through that. It's an expense that you're not able to buy a TV with or whatever. But if you don't put that money there, and if you struggle for the rest of your life, yeah, there's accelerating in a company, there's career, there's relationships, there's family. All of those suffer to great degrees that you never get back ever. So the cost is actually, in comparison, is quite small, and the lasting benefits are quite enormous. So, I mean, I'm certainly, as you know, an advocate of it just because of the change I've seen in my own life. And when I look back to where I was in my depths of my struggle, it was pitiful. I had a pitiful existence. I was barely functioning. And when I look at what I've accomplished over the last 20 years, the freedom and the fun and all those other things, it's just like night and day. So yeah, I certainly understand what you're saying.
Well, and bottom line, Jim, had you not recovered, there'd be no anxiety center.
That's right.
So, because of your investment in your own life, what you and Marilyn have done, you have opened the door to creating the anxiety center. And here, now we have what? There's 10 of us, 10 or 11 coaches now working full time. We now have a new natural nutritionist, or which is absolutely amazing because nutrition is huge. And had you not done that, we would not be where we're at today. And I think that you and Marilyn and each one of us with the anxiety center is evidence of the investment of therapy in our lives.
Just as you were talking, I was thinking, back then we purchased a large screen TV that cost more than my therapy did, and we threw that out years ago.
You mean you could actually lift it?
No, it took a bunch of us to lift it and throw it out. But I'm just thinking of the comparison: 20 or so years of living a really, really fulfilling life versus a TV that will last you 10 years and you throw out.
Right, and then if you're really anxious, you couldn't watch it anyway.
That's right. Yeah, you'd have to really watch what you were watching. Nothing could be high drama. That's for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I know we both live similar ways. We've seen the differences between before we struggled and after our successes. And one thing I do want to say is that one thing I love about our coaches, and including yourself, is that you are passionate about helping people because you've been there. You bought the T-shirt. You know what it's all about, and you help people because this is what you've chosen to do. This is a passion you have, and it's so great that we see the successes we do. I wish more of our success stories would come back and tell others of how they succeeded. But once they get healthy, they're on their way and they're living their lives again. So, but absolutely.